That's not what I had in mind. Wrong way, wrong button. Okay, no. I think I'm just gonna keep it basic. Oh. Hey, Annis. Some time ago I did Lilith through, if I remember right, Lilith through the houses. I can't really remember. But I figure now would be the time to do Black Moon Lilith through the signs, which is pretty much the other 50% of Lilith being placed in a house. This is the other 50%. While the houses can pretty much symbolize like the area of life, Black Moon Lilith is going to be the most apparent, or actually Lilith herself is most apparent in for a native. The signs kind of shows how Lilith is going to behave. And this is Black Moon Lilith. This is in the asteroid or the other celestial body that's also named Dark Moon Lilith, I believe. This is the Lilith that actually has the symbol of a moon, and then it has the plus sign underneath it. Hey Jen, I love seeing you here. Besides, I have to say, your skin, Jen, I don't know what you did to it, but it looks much more vibrant. Like when you did that unboxing, and you got that what was that book that was about H.P. Lovecraft? I think that's what it was. And you were speaking about, I'm gonna try and pronounce his name, Cthulhu? Yeah, that video. What did you do to your skin? Because it's like, whoa, bright. Like, what did you do to it to make it that bright? No, really, I'm asking. Like, because I mean, one of the things that I do is I get like rose petals, and then I use that as like my washcloth, and that's how my skin stays smooth. But I'm like, what do you do? Because I mean, I have like a breakout right here, and I mean, I still break out. I'm like, what the heck, dude? Nonetheless, though. Oh, okay. Well, I think that's probably the main difference, because me and the sun don't get along that well. And it's ironic because we're both flamers. Tried. But yeah, I'm more of a darker person anyway, but oh well. I guess if I want to, have the Miss Universe skin, I'm gonna have to get flamed at by the sun. Ugh. But nonetheless. Now, Black Moon Lilith through the signs. It's essentially best said, the signs are kind of like the how when a planet or a placement's in there, that's like how it's gonna act, and how it's gonna behave, and how it's gonna exert itself. And the house is like specifically where in somebody's life. But then again, depending on what kind of astrology and your intent behind it, like if you're using it for medical astrology, like the first house is the head and the brain. Hey Kiki, ooh, tricky Kiki. Oh well. Good thing about somebody who's tricky is that they keep you on your toes and they're a lot of fun. And I mean, this is something I have to say. Okay. When it comes to people that, well, hey, this is what I was gonna say. When I used to be a front end manager, a lot of the people that I was over, a lot of them have very clever ways of playfully poking fun at me, and in the good way. And I mean, I have to admit, when somebody actually does, you know, kind of playfully or like insult me in a really good way that I can't help but laugh at it, I used to just be like, you know what, that was good, that was good. I'm not even gonna even say anything bad or even like, no, because I mean, I was just that kind of a supervisor. But anyway, get back on topic. But they're the most fun though. Tricky people, they're the most fun and they keep you on your toes. It's true though. So now, voice crack. So as I was saying, like the ascendant would be somebody's head, like somebody's mind and what they're constantly thinking about, and it's the head altogether. So say like you have Lilith in the first. Well, first is also physical body, but in somebody's head, they constantly have Lilithian thoughts going through. No, it's not being like vulgar. It's more like, how am I gonna get myself to be the best that I can be? Huh. Or how am I gonna get back at this guy who thinks he's hot? Cause no, he ain't nothing. I'm gonna have to, teach him that, hey, you're not really that hot. This is an example. But when it comes to Lilith through the signs, though, well, we'll start with her exalted position first, which is Aries. Typical of the first start. So Aries and Lilith. Well, before we get into that, we need to be reminded what Lilith is. Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith, astronomy-wise, is just like the nodes Rahu and Ketu, the North Node and the South Node. As in, she's a shadow planet. She doesn't have an actual physical thing you can land on. What? She's not a real 3D physical body. And she's actually calculated by Moon's orbit, the farthest point of Moon's orbit from Earth's position. So the farthest point of Moon's orbit compared to where the Earth is, that's Lilith. That's Black Moon Lilith. So right from there, hello Jeremy. From there, we can definitely see that Lilith is unpredictable because she's all the way out there, farthest away from Earth, which is the native. She's in the dark, she's in the unknown, she is unpredictable, she's mysterious, she's seductive, but not the seductive as in like the way to, be kind of, the nasty way, no. But the way that kind of like messes with somebody or pokes at somebody's thought process and toys with their imagery in their mind. That placement also can represent somebody's where their true power and what they get the most empowerment from, where it lies in. It also shows how they seduce, allure, captivate, or I'm going to just put it this way, how they can woozy-woo someone to do their bidding. And it's also where they can get, it also shows how they get vengeance, like how they carry out acts of revenge. For an example, if you have a Lilith, say, in Scorpio, which is one of the signs she co-rules, you can actually see somebody get vengeance by pretty much being like in a stalkative kind of a way and very sudden. Like they can actually sneak up on whomever they're getting vengeance on and then just strike. Or they can just use a cult to get vengeance. It's also potentially where you can see where somebody has been through a specific kind of trauma. I'll get to that. So and also Lilith in a certain house and a certain sign, based on how she's placed, you can see that somebody's like they're in their childhood, like in their I'd have to say like somewhat like the second house, and then Aries. For example, if somebody's childhood got acted on in a very very impulsive way, and it just it's just a big thing that you just have to like put all the pieces together. But essentially, you can see where somebody has gone through a traumatic event, and it's also depending on where it's placed. You can see if the Lilith entity herself. You can actually see if she's actually more likely to work alongside you than she's just gonna go, no. You can actually see that with the placement. So, first off, Lilith in Aries. Aries, the sign that is the first, the sign of initiative, the sign of action, potentially. And the Aries is the sign of taking physical action. Ooh. You gotta be careful with that one, miss. You gotta be really careful with that one. Because that placement, Lilith can take you on a lot of adventures on the astral side. You gotta be very careful with that one. But that's a good placement. That's a very interesting placement to have, Lilith. But Lilith in Taurus in the 8th. I was just putting it through my... Oh, Rusty, look at that. We have the same one. But Taurus, Lilith in Taurus in the 8th house. Well, 8th house is one of the placements where Lilith is actually, that's actually one of the places where Lilith's like, yeah, like it's one of the good possibilities she'll work with you. And in Taurus, that's a friendly sign to her, funny enough. So, pretty much, best said, your empowerment lies through is pretty much experiencing the pleasures that a cult can give you, if that makes sense. So for an example, when you actually have experiences doing a cult and pretty much engage your senses with it, like for an example, if you're doing, like say if you're making like essential oil mixes, but possibly, and also Taurus, a Lilith Taurus, the empowerment is going to be coming from like the senses in some way. But now in the 8th house, being a cult, you can actually engage your senses by making essential oil blends, because essential oils and using that for magical purposes, you're engaging the senses. Scent. And you can get empowerment by occult means, by engaging your senses. So, and also, because since the 8th house is the house of the nasty, and it's Taurus, through those experiences and pretty much putting your senses into it and indulging in it, it empowers you. Nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. And also, when things are unpredictable, you also find more empowerment by kind of being put on your toes. And also, you like to pretty much, you find security also when you're able to transform into something different. So for an example, like, definitely, you can most definitely see somebody being like I would have to say like a makeup artist that pretty much loves taking something that's because Taurus is the face and Lilith is a darker color. So you kind of enjoy taking like somebody's face that's kind of bland like mine, and you would probably have a ball game just being like, let's add some black liner here, let's add some purple, I guess it's called eyeshadow, add some of that there, then let's add just a tiny little bit of dark blue into it, both sides, and outline the lips in black and then purple. And this one's Jasmine. This is like one of my guilty pleasures. Jasmine and, oh my god, I almost said Magnolia. But now, pretty much indulging the senses that also does transformation. It's a lot of fun. And Lilith in the 6th house with Taurus. So you pretty much, the 6th house is oh, Michael, that one's interesting. Oh, that was going to be interesting once I get to that one. Let's see here. Lilith in the... let's see. Okay, I did that one. Lilith in the 1st house in Aquarius, just like mine. So Lilith in the 1st house. Well, Lilith in the 1st house pretty much shows that the physical body embodies Lilith in some way, shape, or form. And also the Lilithian way of living, and like how Lilith and her mindset is, gets put in your head. Because the 1st house is your head and your thoughts, and your constant, somewhat reoccurring theme that you think about. Okay, that's a good one, because your Lilith is actually helping protect Moon. Whenever Lilith's with Moon, she automatically protects it. Always. So when it comes now to Lilith in Aquarius, I'm going to just turn on the fan because there's a... There we go. So, Lilith in Aquarius. And first, well, Lilith gets directional strength in the 1st house because she's, well, divine physical body. That's what they want. So Lilith is saying that, okay, this placement, one's empowerment comes from the self. And the way that Lilith looks at that is like, duh? Well, no, duh, my empowerment comes from me. What are you, new here? Oh, obviously. So she's already comfortable. And she gets vengeance by pretty much empowering herself, then turning around and saying, oh, look how high I am, and look how down you are. You know, I remember when you used to say that I was below you, but now who's below who? Oh, while you're down there, would you mind, kissing my foot? They build themselves up higher, and then they turn around, and then they just pop the opposition down. But in Aquarius, that's actually one of her... That's actually one of the air signs, and actually I think that's the only air sign that she really enjoys in. Lilith in Aquarius becomes extra rebellious. Lilith is already rebellious, but in Aquarius, which is automatically rebellious, Lilith is like Lilith being in that placement in the 1st, it's near impossible, pretty much near impossible to pretty much force someone to do something that they don't want to do. They may put it off that they'll be compliant, but they just put that as a charade. I do that a lot. And they just love doing this. Oh, I have to do what now? I have to? Or what? Why can't you do it? You want me to do it? Well, you could have done it by now, but no, you have to force me to do everything for you. Why can't you do it? It could have been over and done with if you just did it. I'm not doing it. Sheesh. It could have been done 2 hours ago, but you must insist I do it. No. That's how it behaves. But because also acts of vengeance are unpredictable, which is very terrifying. Because the way that Lilith can get vengeance is you have no idea where it's going to come from. Because Aquarius is very eccentric. It'll come out of nowhere. It can even be as simple as a backhanded insult. Or it could be just something as simple as, oh, what happened to your car? It just stopped working? Well, that's a shame. Oh, someone put pennies in your gas tank? I don't even know how a car works, dude, so how couldn't it have been me? Has anybody seen my 2 cents? I had 2 cents in my pocket. Now it's gone. Oh well. That's Lilith in Aquarius. It's it's very unpredictable, dark, and concealed. And it's pretty hard to pinpoint it down and pin it down because it's that unpredictable. Now Lilith in who's next? Okay, now Lilith in Lilith Taurus in the 6th. So one's empowerment comes from engaging. Well, the 6th house is the house of health, wellness, small animals, pets. Is also everyday work, enemies, those in poverty. So pretty much one can find the most empowerment by pretty much caretaking the animals and engaging their senses in empowering like pets, like if an animal's been abused, nurturing and caretaking to that animal and making it recover. That can be one of the good placements. I mean, the good things to do for that placement. One's empowerment comes from bestowing enjoyment of life to those that are in poverty. That makes sense. And one gets, and now this is where it gets interesting. One gets vengeance by going after those who have pretty much caused poverty to people. So this is a placement you got to be very careful with, because this is a kind of a placement that someone can actually go after, like say a corrupt politician, and take them out. Not like take them out like, but like actually go at them and then bring them to justice, if that makes sense. Because the 6th house is people in poverty. Lilith is not the one that likes to go with the hierarchy. Like when God said, you must submit. Oh, what are you going to do? You're just mad because I blue balled you. Aw, it's okay. I'll blue ball you again if you like. She's not for the hierarchy. And she's vengeance, so she gets revenge by taking out those, or going after those people that caused poverty to people. And those who, and she also, in this position, if it's dangerously getting a little too close to the 7th house, because that's the spot where she does not like being in, because she has to rely on empowerment on somebody else. If it's like borderline very close to the 7th, she is not going to be the most happy. But usually I haven't even seen that happen yet in any placement, because I use equal houses, and I haven't seen that happen yet. Would. But in Taurus, essentially, really, your everyday routine has to involve you enjoying your senses and actually being empowered by your senses. But also your enemies, though, you have to be careful, because this in the 6th house, being enemies, you have to make sure that your senses don't become your enemy. Because you can indulge, and then your own senses, the 5 senses, actually become your enemy. And it can pretty much deceive you and make you be very more prone to like challenges. Oh, but actually Gemini, that actually helps. Because now if it was because now that I actually have the placements now. So okay, that means you're a Sagittarius rising then. Okay, Gemini. Where's Moon at? Because now I'm really interested in this. Wait, okay, so your moon, is your moon with, where's your moon at? Because depending on how moon is, that's going to influence Lilith. In the first, oh, okay, Sagittarius, okay, so that means, so since moon is in the first, and Lilith is on the borderline, moon is looking at Lilith. And since moon is in your first house, that really saves you. Because now Lilith looking right at you, and she sees, oh, that's the moon. This is what's giving me existence. I can't swing at it. So essentially, the more baneful side of Lilith doesn't swing at you. Because Lilith will not swing at the moon, because it's like, the best way to put it is like you have the moon, which is the mother, and then Lilith, which is the daughter. Hey, Kayla. Why is the daughter going to swing at what's making her exist, and why is she going to swing at her mother? Without moon, Lilith doesn't exist, so she's not going to swing at it. But she also embodies the moon. So being in Sagittarius, Lilith is a lot more moralistic and actually is able to take on higher philosophy in combating those that are acting baneful, malefic, and actually causing purposeful damage. If that makes sense. Like, corrupt politicians. This Lilith actually takes vengeance in a way that is like it has to be moralistic, but then that's how she strikes. And since it's getting close to the 7th house of other people, and in Gemini, Lilith actually is able to connect to people to actually raise up masses amount of people to actually help swing at a like a con artist, because she's able to connect, but she's also able to manipulate people, because that's what Lilith does in the 7th. And then she's actually able to raise up a lot of people and then have them go after a corrupt politician. If that makes sense. What we got next? Okay, now Lilith and Capricorn. Okay, Lilith and Capricorn in the 2nd. Well, I think I've told you this before, Jeremy. Well, your knees. Capricorn is the knees. And 2nd house, okay. So now we have it on the face. That's 2nd house. And senses. So essentially, when you have a lot of self-control and pretty much anything that is like a dark stone, wow. Rowena, I have to tell you this, that's a check. But Rowena, you have probably another one of those placements that says, oh child, come over here. Yep, she's with you. Okay, wait, what was it again? Okay, 2nd house, Capricorn, then after that one is going to be, okay, after that then is Michael for Cancer. Okay. So 2nd house is the face and fixed assets. So for an example, if you have a stone such as amethyst, a Saturnian stone, like a black tourmaline. There's one more, there it is. Like jewelry of any kind, even like a blue sapphire, because that's one of the stones of Saturn, and Saturn owns Capricorn. So essentially, whenever you have fixed assets, or anything regarding, or if you actually, funny enough, if you wear like earrings, or if you actually consume within responsibility, oh good, because when you have, and when it pretty much up to here, and pretty much from the throat up to the face and all the senses, all that's Taurus. And whenever you have like amethyst put on there, yeesh. I was just about to show it, and then it jumped out of my hand. But when you put like a stone, like right there, you're activating Taurus. And if it's amethyst, like so, Lilith is darker colors. When you put it like right on the throat, Lilith gets activated. Or even also, if you take amethyst and you rub it on your knees, because that's also Capricorn. And when you're rubbing it on the knees, you're activating Lilith. So essentially, one gets empowerment by having control over their fixed assets. One feels the most empowered when they have financial security. And one likes to pretty much one of the things that they like to enjoy is having their senses be up to a point. They're very controlled in their spending, and they're very organized when it comes to the home. Well, oil up them knees. But in Capricorn, Lilith, the way that she behaves, can kind of sometimes, you could even say it kind of becomes like a dominatrix, but not really. It has that vibe about her, but she's She's in a friendly sign of Saturn, but the way that it goes is like this. The way that she pretty much captivates others is by saying, you know I'm in power, you know I'm an authority, right? You're not going to tell me no, because who tells the queen no? Oh, and by the way, Adam, yeah, he said no to me, and look what happened to him. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like alluring others by pretty much intimidating them, and also one gets vengeance by being very disciplinarian. So, for example, say like if someone did you harm, the way that vengeance is going to happen is you're pretty much going to go to them and be like, listen, the BS you just did, really? Why the heck did you do that? What good did you think was going to come out of it? If anything, you know what? I think you need to be put in the timeout corner, and hit with a blunt object for a few times, and don't do it again. Or even worse, one gets authority to get them. So, yeah. So if there's any kind of way that there's somebody higher up than them, like say, if someone did you really bad in a business, the way that vengeance can happen is by going to their superior, and then the superior fires them. That's vengeance in a way. Mm-hmm. And usually I always prefer to use the true Lilith, but if you can't find it, then use the other one. Because based on my findings, the true one tends to be the most on point. But when in doubt, if you can't find the true, use the mean. If that makes sense. So now Lilith in Cancer in the 4th. I think that was the next one. Oh, and also there's also Aries. So Lilith in Lilith. Well, oh no, wait, no. Lilith in the 3rd. Yeah, Lilith in the 3rd in Cancer. Well, Lilith in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is pretty much the sign of the Divine Mother. So wherever Cancer is at, your mother gets influenced by that. So in the 3rd house, with Lilith and a Cancer. Pretty much one likes to communicate. Actually, communication. And mother kind of becomes like a friend. And also, since it's the 3rd house, mother likes to enjoy taking strolls. No, she doesn't take the mine. She does. Lilith never takes from them. Lilith doesn't do that. However, though, she gets vengeance on those outside of her instead. But Lilith in the 3rd, essentially, one's talents and skills come from the mother, and the mother is actually someone who is very skillful, and she can be pretty much put into a lot of lines of work. For an example, she could be a seamstress because 3rd house is the hands. She can also be very good at raising a child and also teaching parenting classes. And the way that someone gets vengeance, well, essentially they can actually be very good at insulting somebody's mother and taking a stab at it that way. They get vengeance by having the aggressor's younger siblings, or even their own mother, swing at them. For example, say, if you have this twathead who's really causing a lot of damage and harm to you, it's not a sword society. Say for an example, you're not with, but there's this one person who keeps tormenting you, and you actually are really good friends with their younger sister or brother because 3rd house is siblings. You can actually get vengeance by having them go after that person that's giving you crap. Because since you're friends with them, they'll actually take out the person that's giving you trouble, and they'll do the vengeance for you. Or even, heck, you can even tell their mother, your child is acting so I make them stop it. And, well, Lilith is vengeance. Mother figure of a friend or even a neighbor gets vengeance for you. But also one's skills are usually handed down by the mother. And since Lilith is in there, essentially mother figure can actually teach you on how to manipulate people or have people be more likely to comply with you. Because Lilith is a very, pretty much she's extremely passive, if that makes sense. And also mother can actually use vocabulary that's very entrancing, if that makes sense. And she's very, she has a really, not really commonly used choice of vocabulary, if that makes sense. More words that are more, like glissade, as an example. Pretty much words that have more of a darker tone, but not mean that she doesn't talk dark, but the vocabulary used, not the tone of voice, that's the second house, but the tone of voice is very, no, not the tone of voice, like the words used, they're darker, but they're seducible. Like they pretty much put a lot of imagery in somebody's head. Let's see here. Now, who is after that one? I think Lilith. Okay, Lilith in the 4th. Oh, and a Rahu with him. Okay, now Rahu, North Node. Now, this is interesting because Rahu, usually what he does when conjunct any planet, usually, Rahu possesses that planet. Because pretty much it gets a hold of it and then it pushes it to do what it wants to do. Besides Jupiter, and Rahu really doesn't swing at Venus because that's his guru. But with Lilith, this is where it can get kind of interesting. Because Lilith, you cannot get a hold of, and if you try to get a hold of her, she's... So now, essentially this is what happens. You have Pac-Man, Ethan, you have Pac-Man, and then you have Lilith. Pac-Man is trying to go nom 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 on Lilith, and she's responding with, no, you're not going to take a bite out of this. In fact, if you want this, you're going to have to do what I tell you to do. But she's not going to give him anything. Just like the whole thing with God. Fine, I'll be your queen, but one condition. First, make me something beautiful in a place I can go to. And then once he did it, she blue-balled him and left him. Lilith does the same thing with his Rahu. So essentially, one's empowerment and pretty much how one strives for something, they put their, they get the most empowerment by enhancing their skill set. And they're pretty much focused on making sure that a certain skill gets to the point where it's like mastery. If that makes sense. And also, a mother figure can pretty much provide mother can actually provide a lot of skills in the marketing field, especially when catering to somebody's needs and wants, because that's Cancer. Mother figure can actually teach the native on how to say the right things to gain the trust and security of other people, then to use that to empower the self. That makes sense. So salesmen, businessmen, car salesmen, that's a good placement because Cancer is also vehicles. And Rahu is Pac-Man. He'll actually be very fixated, and Lilith trying to seduce and captivate another person. Lilith can actually help in this regard. One can actually use their somewhat, not really in the face because Cancer's there, but Cancer is nurturing in a seduceful way and persistent about it until it gets that security from the person, and thus they can actually sell what they want to sell, because that's third house too, marketing. So one can market very powerfully with this. So if you're a salesman or anything regarding sales and you're trying to pitch a sales pitch, this is a good placement for that. Because you can cater to somebody's feelings and security. Rahu is always retrograde. Same with Rahu and Ketu are always retrograde. They're always retrograde. If they went direct, we would have an issue. And Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, cannot be retrograde. Some people say they can be retrograde, but here's my question. How can you tell it's retrograde if you can't see it? You can't see it at all. How can you see a mathematical point that you can't even see it? Lilith is actually meant to be unknown and in the dark, so you can't really see it. Now somebody's to say, but what about the nodes? How are they retrograde? You can't see those. Hold on there. You know when an eclipse happens? If you watch an eclipse before it happens, you see these dark spheres go like around the sun. That's one of the nodes. When you see that happen, it's going backwards, and it's possessing the sun. Well, don't really watch it, because if you watch that in eclipse, oh crap! But still, look it up. You'll see it. But now Lilith in, I think it was Lilith in the first house in no, not first house. Lilith in Aries in the fourth. Well, Lilith in the fourth house, that pretty much is one of the stamps of approval of like saying, okay, Lilith is actually in the house of your mother. And in Aries, well, mother figure has a lot of initiative. Like sheep. The best put it. Let's just say mother is somebody who doesn't like to sit around. And if somebody swings at you, mother will swing at them just as hard, if not worse. Mother can be very... Mother is kind of like, she's very fun. But she can be quite, you know... I'm trying to figure out a funny way to put this. Pretty much, she can act like... Sometimes she can act like a child, but she likes to have a lot of fun. And she's bright. Like, wow, she has a lot of energy in her. But most definitely, though, since Lilith is exalted in Aries, essentially how she gets revenge or vengeance, Lilith just strikes when it needs to be done. Like, in the moment, if someone swings at you, mother figure will just go at them right then and there. And one finds security and a sense of conveniency and comfort through Lilith. One feels secure in the shadows and in the dark. And when you can do that, you find perfect zen. And one captivates others by making their security feel apparent. And one also may have experienced some kind of marking event by mother figure, or something that used to give them security ended up harming them pretty bad, because that's also another part of Lilith. But Lilith in the fourth is actually one of the check marks of Lilith actually more likely to working alongside you in those houses, so that way it's up there. 1st, 4th, 8th, 10th, 12th. Those are the houses that Lilith is most likely going to work alongside you. But now with Lilith in, was it Pisces in the 9th? I think that was the next one. I'm trying to catch up on all of these. There we go. Okay, Lilith 9th. Lilith in the 4th with Moon. Well, in Gemini. Well, like I've said, Moon in Gemini with Lilith in the 4th. Moon originally owns this house, and now that Lilith's in there with the Moon, Lilith again protects the Moon. So if there's any kind of baneful aspect on the Moon, Moon's protected, because Lilith protects it. Because without Moon, Lilith doesn't exist. So essentially, mother figure actually helps you be able to pretty much, let's say, seduce others in a way that you can't be harmed. Like, you're able to take your emotions and protect them by shutting them off, but you're still able to connect to somebody. But if something happens, you don't get hurt by it. If someone tries to swing at your mother, now instead of it being the mother taking the initiative, now it's you who comes around and then takes the initiative. But also the mother swings back at them too at the same time. So essentially, native and mother mother and Lilith. Oh crap! Mother and daughter, because that's how the placement works. Those two kind of team up on the aggressor, and they pretty much like, oh, that sounds so bad. Yeah, they pretty much tag team the heck out of them. It's like tag in mother, okay, tag out daughter, and it can be kind of scary, because. And also, the way the vengeance happens is that sometimes even mother and daughter actually become like, what is that called? What is that called? Oh, what is that called? Angel something. Charlie's Angels or something like that? Oh, what was it? What was it? I have it on the tip of my head and I can't remember it. But essentially, it's like mother and daughter pretty much scheme up something to actually like get back at like the father or something, and take his money. Yeah, that's kind of like a potential thing that can happen, because mother and daughter work together as a team, essentially. But in the fourth, essentially, conveniency is pretty much bestowed, and there's like a deep connection between them and mother, and they're actually able to connect and exchange ideas. Not Three Musketeers. Well, I want to say Three Musketeers because it's a lot more intimate, like mother and daughter. They work together as like kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde, but not like, well, I mean, it can be criminal if it has to be done, but they don't get caught. Because again, Lilith protects the moon. Emotions and sense of being full gets protected. Because you can't, if the moon's protected and secure, because Lilith is the dark, and moon is being protected by the dark, the stability and somebody's emotions can't be harmed by having a connection that doesn't really benefit them or does anything good, because the emotions are being protected. So really, the moon and Lilith can't be really compromised that much based on the native. I think, okay, now Lilith in Pisces in the 9th. Like I said, that's a really interesting placement, and it can be one that's a lot of fun. Because Pisces is the sign of escapism, intoxication, spirituality, long distance travel. Then you have the 9th house, which is almost kind of the same thing, but you now throw in philosophy and moralistic thinking and teachers and gurus. So essentially you have Lilith actually being somebody who helps guide you through your spiritual pursuits. And she also teaches you how to get vengeance in a way that's very relieving for you, and also in a way that you can actually take a stab at someone that's moralistic, but also in a way that really like spears their, like, to the deepest parts of them and gives them a good jab with morality. Like, say if someone, like if there was a person who was suffering from domestic violence and she was being constantly like abused every day, this Lilith will actually in turn not be afraid to go to somebody who's being the abuser and just say the absolute most perfect thing to them in a way that pierces beyond their 3D body, stabs right at their soul, and then pretty much reminds them in a way that the way that you're behaving, it's not right and it's kind of disgusting. And if this was like how it was done back in the days, you would have been tied to a tree and then you would be slapped nonstop until, you know, you had rosy cheeks. But still, no wonder no man wants you, or even man or woman, doesn't matter. No wonder nobody wants you. I mean, look how you're treating this innocent person. No wonder nobody wants you. I mean, wow. Like, how do you expect anybody to love you when you're hitting them? Like, come on, dude. You must be a special kind of stupid that thinks, oh, hitting makes people love. No, let's use some common sense, hon. And why didn't why didn't you go learn how to care and support somebody instead of just constantly hitting them and having hissy fits? Because that's not cool. But essentially something much more darker than that. But in meditations and actually having a guide help you, Lilith can actually potentially be somebody who helps teach and guide you how to meditate. Because that's Pisces and ninth house is long distance travel. Usually traveling to the astral and meditations and going to other dimensions, that's a long distance travel. Because you're not physically walking, but you're connecting in a long distance. Okay, let's see. Pisces, no, okay, I did that one. Okay, I did that one. Okay, Scorpio in the 10th. Scorpio in the 10th. Well, that's another one of those checks of approval. So Lilith is most likely to work with you, potentially. And in Scorpio, well, she co-rules that sign. Don't yell. So essentially, Lilith in the 10th. Well, somehow your service to society involves Lilith somehow. And in Scorpio, she's already comfortable there. So essentially, one carries out acts of vengeance and is known for getting vengeance on those that cause her harm. And is also somebody who has a reputation of kind of don't hate me. And also their reputation comes by going after somebody who has caused harm to somebody innocent. Like if somebody has harmed a lot of women, this individual can have the reputation, because that's your reputation in standing in society. Their reputation is known for like, don't mess with her, because she'll get you when you're not expecting it. Especially if you go after somebody innocent, she'll be the one that actually will pursue you and then take a swing when you least expect it. Because Scorpio is that sign that's about like assassinations and sudden attacks. That's Scorpio. And potentially too, your reputation may go through sudden events, but nonetheless though, you'll still be able to come out of it every time. And also the way that you like to captivate others is by saying and sharing events of like, essentially, even though your reputation may have a lot of changes happening, you'd still like to recall, I remember this one time well, his name wasn't Adam, but yeah, I made an Adam out of him. I remember when he was, trying so hard to like just be so unreasonable to somebody innocent. Yeah, and I remember, popping all 4 of his tires. And he didn't have that much money, but oh well, that's what he gets for being stupid. Something like that. One's reputation can actually come from taking sudden vengeance on those that are needing to be put back in line. It's a good placement. Okay, now that I've pretty much like answered a good majority of all those, and I mean I'm getting really off topic, but essentially now Lilith through the signs. I'm gonna grab a thing of water. Be right back. Hold on. Grab some water. Okay, I'm back now. Sorry, it took a little bit more than expected, but nonetheless, okay. We're not getting back on attached layer, but I was intending to get talking about. Because, yeah. Well, both in Aries. Essentially, the way that somebody carries out acts of vengeance and how they like to seduce others is very direct. They like to just take action right then and there. And essentially, they prioritize taking their self-empowerment and they focus on their self primarily first. And they like to exert that they're able to do as they like and they understand themselves. That's a Katie. That was it. That was a Katie. I had to figure out who it was. I knew it was two, and then that just popped it right in my head. Now all that's playing. Now all that is coming right back to my head now. So Lilith in Aries, that's her exalted sign to be in because initiative is there, and when you have Lilith be acting in a way that's very initiative, takes action, and is able to do as she likes without any kind of opposition, because that's Aries. Impulsivity and a lot of initiative. She does as she pleases without any second guessing, and she has confidence, a lot of confidence. And the acts of vengeance is very swift, and she kind of tells, like, seduces and allures in a point blank way, because that's also Aries. Scoot into Taurus. Now, one's empowerment comes through indulging and enjoying the senses. One finds their empowerment through pleasure. Nothing wrong with it. It is what it is. And one gets vengeance by kind of showing other people, like, you see this very expensive piece of jewelry? It's mine, and you're not going to get it. It's the only one in existence. You're not getting it. I knew you wanted it too, but that's why I got it. Besides, I just love how this stone is, as an example. And one can actually get vengeance by pretty much say, like, if somebody was trying to, like, say that somebody doesn't have anything, like they're, like, in poverty, this a Taurus Lilith will actually get vengeance by pretty much going towards them, seeing like what kind of foods they eat, what kind of wine they drink. They would be the kind that goes, oh, you're getting like cheap Walmart wine? Come on. Look, this wine I got right from Italy. It's a $400 bottle of wine. What are you going to do with that barefoot? Really? Barefoot? No. You're not worth anything, hun. No. But it's like having that one up of like their indulgence of pleasure, and they get vengeance by kind of showing that they indulge much more better than somebody else. Lilith and Gemini. Essentially, this one can be a little bit. Lilith can be a little bit not really that fond of this placement because in order for her to be empowered, she has to connect to someone because Gemini is connection and also skills. But however, though, one can connect to somebody and gain from them. One gets empowerment by just connecting and interacting with someone. So even though Lilith doesn't like, having to rely on somebody else, whenever she just communicates or interacts with someone, she gets empowered by it. And one can get vengeance by actually connecting to someone and converting them to her cause. So say if you're trying to get a certain task done, this is actually a placement where you can actually captivate someone to doing it for you. But depending on other placements too. And one gets vengeance by the way they communicate. So essentially somebody write a letter to somebody, and the way that the words are used can actually petrify the person that's being sent to. Like, say, if you are having a stalker, and if you have this placement, you can actually find a way to see where they live, or you have an email address. You can actually type it in a way and also veil yourself for like another email address that doesn't go anywhere. You can actually send an email or a message to this stalking individual and put it in a way that they might develop psychosis based on just how it's written and strike dread and terror into someone, because that's an act of vengeance, and emailing is communication. That's also Gemini. So now, Lilith in Cancer, essentially Lilith gets the embodiment of the Divine Mother, so one's mother is very protective, and Lilith actually is very mothery, not really motherly, but very protective of the native. Can also be one who guides and teaches and provides conveniency to the native. And one gets vengeance by pretty much swinging at the aggressor's most vulnerable spots, because Cancer is like the heart. So essentially, you do not want to make somebody who has a Lilith in Cancer, you do not want to break their heart, because they'll go to your heart and then just completely chisel it down and chisel it away, piece by piece. Break it up into small pieces and break it up even more and more and more up until it's dust. And once it's all dust, she'll just go, oh, well, we shouldn't have broken my heart then. That's probably one of the scariest Liliths, because she will not hesitate to go to your heart, shatter it, and just sweep it away to the wind like dust. A Lilith in Leo. This is a fun Lilith. This Lilith is a lot of fun. Essentially, one's empowerment comes from being in the spotlight, and pretty much when somebody gets adorned and somebody has a lot of recognition, and when somebody gets pretty much appreciated, like for example, like say if somebody is being harassed and then somebody with a Leo Lilith comes in and actually pushes away the person that's harassing another individual. This Lilith, well, I can just say this. If this Lilith comes in and helps the person, that person better be appreciative and show it in some way. Otherwise, the Lilith will get vengeance now on that person for not appreciating them making the choice to help them. That's just one of the kind of the darker points of this Lilith. But however, though, one gets their true empowerment by being like it makes sense if I put it this way. One gets empowered by essentially having a queen status, but that's not a bad thing. Being a queen status means that you do as you please, you get what you like, and you pretty much have the confidence to know that I can make the choices for me, nobody else. And I don't really remember anybody telling a queen no. And the times that did happen, well, they got beheaded. And also, one can be able to use their sense of livelihood. It's Black Moon Lilith. That's Black Moon Lilith. Okay, because there's actually a mathematical point called Black Moon Lilith, and there's two other points. There's Asteroid Lilith and Dark Moon Lilith. Those are the other Lilith placements. Yeah, Black Moon Lilith. You'll see a symbol that's a black moon, then it has a cross holding it up. That's Black Moon Lilith. Now, Lilith in Virgo. This Lilith can be very terrifying, because now Lilith in the sign of Virgo, essentially one gets empowerment by making themselves the best they can be. And one's empowerment comes by attending to their health and ensuring that their standards of perfect is met. They get empowered by their sense and their standing of their opinion of perfection. And one gets vengeance by completely decimating somebody when they make a very grave mistake. Like if somebody, let's say, like if somebody is not following state guidelines and like having a sanitary procedure and like having like handling food and making sure it's at the right temperature and potentially becoming a health hazard, this Lilith will completely tear that business to shreds, and the business owner and those that are in authority in that business. This Lilith will not hesitate to essentially nitpick the living heck out of it and just completely decimate them. Because this Lilith is thinking in the ideas of like, this is not how it's supposed to be done. And because since you're being a risk to people, you don't need that right to have a business. And she'll actually close down the business, essentially. And one seduces others by pretty much showing how perfected they are. Kind of like, not in a way that shows that I'm better than you, but really, dude, why can't you be like me that doesn't even do the BS you do? Really? Why are you acting like that? Is that idea of having impurity and having the lack of being as impure as possible and using that to push in somebody's face. Lilith in Libra. This is the sign that Lilith does not like. Because now, in order for her to be empowered, she has to negotiate. Lilith does not like to negotiate. And Lilith does not like to barter. Pretty much is like having Lilith doing this. Really? I have to negotiate my empowerment? Why am I going to negotiate that? Why do I have to barter with me and what makes me feel myself? No. No. So she doesn't like the placement. But this individual is really good at seducing people and is actually able to pick up on how to kind of like be a puppet master, which can be very terrifying. And one gets vengeance. This can actually be a placement where somebody can get vengeance by pretty much dating somebody's ex. It has potential. And also one gets vengeance by having somebody's exes take a swing at them. Because Libra is all about the relationships and bartering and that kind of connection. And worse, this Lilith can get someone that's like an aggressor in legal trouble. Like a lot of legal trouble. Like if this Lilith was in an incident of domestic violence, the person that's being the abuser, yeah, law enforcement she's gonna get law enforcement on their tush. This is not the sign that Lilith likes to be in, but it's one of the most terrifying. Just like with Cancer. Lilith in Scorpio, she owns the sign of Scorpio, so she's naturally comfortable here. But the way that she exerts herself is in a way that's very dark, and you never know when it's going to happen. It's just going to come out of nowhere. She also strikes dread and terror. And also, the way that Lilith comes out is in a way during that. So one's empowerment comes from having that happen. It is what it is. And Lilith gets acts of vengeance that are subtle. And it's also very difficult to scare this individual with Lilith, because if the 8th house is activated, their Lilith gets activated, so it's not really that much of a spot where somebody can be very terrified, or they can handle the dark and darker things much easier than somebody else. Lilith in Sagittarius. Lilith doesn't like Sagittarius because she's thinking, I have to be more realistic, and I have to do philosophy. I don't like that. But nonetheless, essentially one's empowerment comes by pretty much pushing ideas that are for her gain. Like a philosophy that shows that, hey, if I'm not messing with you and if I don't want anything to do with you, don't mess with me, dude. And one is actually somebody who actually is very good at teaching self-empowerment with this. And one likes to learn the higher truths of the higher self. And one gets empowerment from one's higher intelligence. Lilith and Capricorn. I think I've done this one already, but Lilith and Capricorn, you have somebody's status, somebody's work ethic, and somebody's standing in society. They now use that as in like how they intimidate people. But also Lilith gets empowerment by having a lot of self-control, dominance, and also strikes fear and intimidation to those that try and harm her. And she also gets vengeance by pretty much being very disciplinarian and authoritative. And also, this can make Lilith very cold. And the way that somebody gets their empowerment is in a way that's like, I don't have time for feelings. And also, this can actually make someone be very cold in how they get vengeance. So it's like in a way that they're not going to even flinch if they're like, oh, please don't do this. And not even flinch. So this kind of makes somebody a lot less emotionally prone to having something you put in front of them, but this thing hurt them, so they're a lot more likely to not even flinch and still whack it. Lilith in Aquarius, like I've said, is the most unpredictable and is perhaps one of, if not the most scary, because Lilith is double the rebellious and unpredictable. Lilith in Pisces, I've done that one. Lilith in Pisces, essentially one gets vengeance by essentially being able to escape any kind of situation, but also go by astral means to attack someone. So witchcraft, occult, psychic work, psychic attack is how they can get vengeance. But, and also another thing with Lilith and Pisces, potentially it does have the risk that essentially whenever you get intoxicated, but now again, intoxication is not meaning by getting drunk or 420, bro. No, not that. It's more than just that. Like this, water. I'm now intoxicated by water. Because I'm not thirsty no more. So, whenever you intake something that's outside of you, you intake it and your perspective changes. Essentially, that's how you can actually interact with Lilith in some way. Through different perspectives, you come to get closer and closer to Lilith. But also, your empowerment comes also by seeing many perspectives. And you get vengeance, again, by potentially doing spiritual means to attack someone, like psychic attack. But also, you got to be very careful, though, because addiction challenges may be prone, potentially, but not addiction to just like substances, but like addiction to something else, because Pisces being escapism, once empowerment comes by escaping. That's what it is, what it is, so we got to be very careful with that. Hold on. Come up. Okay, I'm gonna have to end the live early. I have a call I have to take, so be right back.